This is really what they call the cradle of Western civilization. This part here in pink is what they call the Fertile Crescent. So all the way through Egypt, what's called Phoenicia there today, the Holy Land, Israel, Palestine, through Syria today, in Iraq, where Mesopotamia was, the land between the two rivers, and the Nile River. And a lot of people, you know, they hear about it today, what happened in Iraq and everything. What a mess. Mesopotamia. Trouble between the two rivers. And then you've got the Nile River. A lot of people are seeing what's in the news these days. Oh my gosh. They don't want to believe it. But they might be in denial. I think those qualify as some of the first couple jokes of the year. So there you go. Real important as you look at this map, it kind of shows you the domestication of animals and then that systematic agriculture. This is the difference between being able to support a large population and live in cities, and what we did prior to that as humans, where we were hunting and gathering, the more Paleolithic time period. So important to be considering that. Fermentation and civilization are inseparable. That's the quote. So, 150,000 years ago, pretty much anything before that time period, we were drinking water and water alone. It was the only drink, the basic drink, and it still is important today. Your body is made up of 2/3 water. The earth also made up of mostly water. But when we switched from that hunting and gathering lifestyle to a more settled way of life, they developed the cultivation of plants like wheat and barley, these cereal grains. Hugely important for the development of the human body and how it changed, and also, of course, in being able to support a lot of people in a very nutritious way. The drink, beer, became central to social, religious, and economic life. These are staples of the course. We're going to look at things like social, economic, religious, cultural. We'll be looking at those kind of factors the entire way through the course. So how did they come up with this thing called beer? Where'd they get the idea for it anyway? It was pretty much something they bumped into. They had no idea that this is what they were going after. And if you look up here at the top above Dr. Thomas Shellhammer, which frankly I wish I had a name like Shellhammer. That's a pretty good name right there. He doesn't look like a Shellhammer though. He looks kind of small to me, but he goes, and I think he's at Oregon State. But early humans left some of the grain that they had put into a clay pot. They left it outside, maybe went on a hunt or something. It rained, and then it rained again, and the water mixing with the grain, over time, the breakdown of the sugars in the grain began to create a liquid form. When they came back, they tasted it for whatever reason. I guess there are people like that today, they'll taste anything. And they thought, well, this tastes pretty interesting. And that's how beer was discovered. It wasn't really something they set out to invent. This helps to spur what's called the urban revolution, what Standage refers to, and we're talking about in the second chapter here with the agricultural revolution. The advances in understanding how people generally could grow crops to feed so many thousands of people. Now you could have a specialized job, specialized labor system where someone is in charge of hunting, someone else is in charge of maybe planting some foods and some grains. Other people not dealing with food production at all. They can do things like learning how to be a writer or a scribe or an artist or a priest or whatever. So was it a better way to live in a civilization, or was it better to live in Paleolithic times when it was a hunting and gathering lifestyle? It's something to consider and be thinking about, something we'll touch on in chapter 1 for sure. Beer was a staple foodstuff without which no meal was complete. It was consumed by everyone, rich, poor, men, women, adults, and children, from the top to the bottom of the social pyramid. So truly, the defining drink of these first great civilizations is what Standage calls it. Of course, people drink beer today, but the beer that they drank then, it was quite a different thing. What you're really looking at here is something like liquid bread. It's the same essence. You've got the same things that go into making bread. It's just in a liquid form. This means that if someone would drink beer, which of course is going to have some alcohol in it, but that was very small compared to what is in alcoholic drinks today, you're going to be able to get some nutrition from drinking that. On top of that, the alcohol is going to help protect the water supply so it's not nearly as contaminated, as we'll see here in a couple seconds. But the people who built the pyramids were paid in beer, and we know this because we look back at the writing systems and can see it. And as they have been able to determine the origins of cuneiform and look and see what the symbol stood for, you'll see quite a few that stand for beer. You see this gentleman here drinking out of what's like a reed, looks like a big old straw. It's kind of like back in the 50s when they're sitting there in the malt shop, sharing a drink sharing somebody's milkshake. And so if you don't know this, it's maybe a cultural reference before your time. I don't know. Back to the Future? There's only been like 3 of them. You could probably check that out sometime. I don't know, McFly. So, what is without a doubt the most spectacular example of the use of beer as a form of payment? It's in the building of the Egyptian Giza pyramids. The workers who built them were paid in beer. This is 2500 BCE. Basically 3 or 4 loaves and 2 jugs containing 4 to 5 liters of beer. So what you're talking about here is liquid beer, or liquid water, liquid bread, and bread is what I meant to say. So Egyptian workers were given small coins they could trade in to get the beer. But remember that the beer is only 3% by alcohol. That's quite less than what it is today. That's a lot of beer to build the pyramids. So ancient liquid wealth and health. So very important to be thinking about the ways that beer might have contributed to helping assist civilization to develop. Writing is certainly one of those ways. Oldest written documents are dated back to 3400 BCE. Documented proof that state rations provided nutritional diet for Mesopotamia. You could see it was a very structured society. Everybody got the same amount of rations, and so they could see the dates would get them vitamin A, and the beer would help with vitamin B, and onions with vitamin C. Of course, they didn't know about these vitamins, but today we look at it and we think, well, that's in some ways similar to what humans need today. The cuneiform tablet you see here down below is from the Sumerian city of Nippur, dated around 2100 BCE. That's before the Common Era, and we'll be talking about CE and BCE in class at the beginning, but that's before the Common Era. The oldest surviving record of use of alcohol in medicine was on a cuneiform tablet. So as urban water supplies became contaminated, beer is going to be a lot less contaminated because you're boiling it to help create the fermenting process and speed that up. On top of that, actually boiling the water was killing off some contaminants, but the alcohol would as well. So a couple things to be thinking about there in terms of liquid wealth and health. So beer in ancient Mesopotamia, to kind of summarize things here, by discussing the global processes such as the increase of agriculture, urban development, which you see here in the, I think this is really well done. You see the rivers around it, and this is a Mesopotamian development here. The circular walls, the water that's funneled through, and yet those circular walls you see where the potentially you could have herds of animals here and then fields surrounding it. So you see increase in agriculture and systematic domestication of animals, urban settlement, regional trade patterns, which we see trading from all of these civilizations going back and forth. We'll see some evidence of that in Strayer as we begin. And the evolution of writing and this health and nutrition. And Standage provides the needed global context for the social evolution of beer. And that's basically what the first part's about. You see what this beer looked like here down at the bottom with straws in there for them to drink. That doesn't look very appetizing to me. Like I said, I'm not a big beer drinker. I'm not a beer drinker at all. But I guess back then it was a different world. They didn't have as many choices. So next video clip we'll see wine in ancient Greece and the Roman Empire. Pretty interesting one. It should be grape, so don't miss it. We'll see you next time. Thanks.